Welcome to the Deep Dive. Cut through the noise to bring you the essential insights. Today, we're doing a deep dive into the global biofuel tractor market.
And our guide for this is a brand new market analysis report. It's from June 2025, just out from Data String Consulting. Gives us a really current look at this evolving part of the agricultural machinery world.
Right. So, our mission today, basically, to unpack this report for you. We want to get a handle on the market size, where it's heading, break down its key segments, how the report divides things up,
Yeah, and explore the forces pushing it forward and the things holding it back.
and map out where this is all happening geographically, plus identify the major companies really shaping the competitive scene.
Feels like a really timely topic, doesn't it? I mean, with this global push for sustainable farming, sustainable everything, really,
Exactly.
and finding eco-friendly solutions. Biofuel tractors, well, they sit right at that crossroads of tech, the environment, and farming itself.
Okay, so let's jump right in. The core numbers from this report. It estimates the global biofuel tractor market was worth about $867 million in 2024. That's kind of our starting point.
And the forecast, it's looking at some pretty significant growth. The report anticipates it hitting $1.4 billion by 2030,
Okay.
and then growing again to around $2.2 billion by
Oh,
2035.
wow. Okay, that's a serious upward curve. The report spells that out
Yeah.
clearly, right? It projects a compound annual growth rate, a CAGR, of 8.8% over the forecast period.
That's 2025 through 2034.
Right. And that 8.8% CAGR translates to a projected market expansion of 132% in just the next decade. That's pretty substantial growth.
It really is. And the report points to two sort of primary forces fueling this. First, there's that accelerating global focus on sustainable farming practices.
Right, the big picture environmental goals.
Exactly. And just finding energy solutions that actively tackle climate change.
Biofuel seems like a natural fit there.
Makes sense. And the second driver, technology. Specifically, advancements in the tractors themselves. The improvements are boosting fuel efficiency and, importantly, lowering operating costs for farmers. That makes the switch, maybe a little less financially scary.
So we've got the big numbers, the main growth engines. But this market, it's not just one big blob, is it? The report segments it in some interesting ways. How about we start with product type?
Okay, so according to this analysis, the market's mainly split between hybrid and pure biofuel tractors.
Hybrid and pure, okay.
What's quite interesting is that back in 2024, both of these held, significant and pretty much equal market share, roughly 45% each.
And the report gives a clue about where one of those might be heading more strongly.
It does, yeah. The data seems to suggest that the pure product types, the ones running only on biofuel, are getting particular traction in forestry and horticulture.
Ah, okay.
Kind of indicates that those specific niches might offer even higher growth potential for the pure biofuel models, maybe compared to general farming.
Interesting. And beyond the engine type, the report segments by application. We're talking, agricultural farming, forestry, horticulture.
Fruit farming, livestock management, and then a catch-all others category.
Right.
And sort of linking back to that point about pure types, the report really emphasizes that companies focusing specifically on those forestry and horticulture applications, they're expected to grab a bigger slice of the market going forward.
Okay, so that's a key strategic insight.
Yeah, and it also looks at how competitive these areas are. Agricultural farming, high intensity. Forestry is medium. Horticulture is rated low intensity. But the report's quick to add, it's growing fast.
The report also touches briefly on other segmentations, doesn't it? Things like the technology involved.
Manual ignition, automatic ignition, even remote control operation.
And fuel compatibility. Seed oil, animal fat, waste vegetable oil.
Right, the different potential feedstocks. And also emission standards, how these tractors help meet tough standards like Euro 6 or Tier 4. It really shows you the different technical layers involved here.
Okay, so we see the drivers, but what about the other forces shaping the market? The dynamics, the challenges, the opportunities.
Yeah, beyond just growth drivers. Let's look at the restraints first. The report calls out two big ones. First, high initial cost. That's often a factor with new tech adoption and machinery.
Pretty standard hurdle, yeah.
But maybe the more critical one, the more practical restraint, is limited infrastructure.
Ah,
And this isn't just roads. The report specifically flags the lack of sufficient biofuel supply chains and, crucially, refueling stations, especially out in rural areas where these tractors are actually used the most.
That makes total sense. I mean, if you're a farmer, you need to know you can actually get the fuel easily.
Exactly. That availability gap is a major barrier to adoption, the report suggests.
So despite that significant hurdle, what about the flip side? What are the big opportunities the report sees?
Well, the untapped agricultural sector itself is seen as a massive opportunity. As global demand for sustainable farming rises, it naturally creates this huge potential customer base for biofuel tractors.
And technology isn't just about improving current models, it's also opening new doors.
Absolutely. The report mentions advancements in biofuel technologies generally, but also points to cutting-edge stuff like potentially hydrogen fuel cells or more advanced hybrid propulsion systems.
Right.
These are creating significant new growth avenues by really pushing the envelope on efficiency, on reliability, durability,
Yeah.
making these machines even more compelling.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit and look at geography. Where is this market actually taking hold? The report breaks it down by region: North America, Europe, Asia Pacific, Latin America, Middle East, and Africa.
And it gives some flavor for each. North America, for instance, is seeing rapid growth. The report directly links this to environmental sustainability drives and, importantly, government support, things like grants and subsidies.
And within North America, the US is highlighted.
Yes, seen as a leader in innovation there. Manufacturers are focusing on energy-efficient, low-emission models, partly driven by strict standards.
And the report mentions the availability of biomass feedstock being a plus factor.
Right, that helps, along with the presence of big players headquartered there, like John Deere and New Holland.
Okay, so US is the largest market currently. But there's an interesting point about Canada.
There is, yeah. Looking forward, the report projects Canada might actually show a higher CAGR than the U.S. between 2025 and 2034.
Really? Why is that?
The report pins it on Canada embracing sustainability, perhaps more rapidly. But it adds this interesting strategic note
Uh-huh.
that this quicker transition in Canada might actually benefit global players, letting them gain market share over domestic Canadian companies if the local industry doesn't consolidate fast enough.
Huh, that's a fascinating dynamic. What about Europe?
Europe's also a major player, particularly strong in places like Germany and France.
And the driver there is mainly regulations.
Largely, yes. Stringent EU environmental rules and those ambitious carbon footprint reduction goals are really pushing the market. Plus, the report highlights ongoing R&D investment from European manufacturers like AGCO Corporation and CLEAS. That helps solidify their position.
Does the report pinpoint any specific regional hotspots for growth? Beyond just the big continents, maybe linking regions and applications.
It does mention a couple of things. Between now, 2025 and 2030, Asia Pacific and North America are expected to lead growth, particularly when you look at forestry applications.
Okay, forestry again.
And remember that insight about horticulture applications opening doors for pure product types?
Yes.
The report specifically forecasts that playing out strongly in North America.
Got it. Okay, let's talk about who is driving this market now, the competitive landscape. The report names quite a few key players.
Yeah, the list includes some big familiar names: John Deere, New Holland, AGCO Corporation, Massey Ferguson,
Also Mahindra and Mahindra, Kubota, same dudes far.
Tractors and Farm Equipment Limited, Escorts Limited, Zedor Tractors, Arbos, McCormick Tractor. It's a crowded field.
And looking at market share for 2024, there's a clear leader, isn't there? AGCO Corporation, they call it Company 3 in the report, holds the biggest piece of the pie at 26%.
That's right. John Deere, or Company 1, is second at 18%. Then New Holland, Company 2, at 13%, and Massey Ferguson, Company 4, at 11%.
And the rest, about 32%, is grouped as other companies. That 26% for AGCO is quite a lead. Does the report explain how they achieved that dominance?
It doesn't really dive deep into the why for AGCO's specific share in 2024, unfortunately. But it does talk more broadly about the strategic dynamics we might expect to see.
Like what?
Well, it suggests we could see shifts, like the market leaders may be acquiring smaller innovators to get their tech. It also expects some consolidation among the niche players.
Mergers and acquisitions, basically.
Yeah, and maybe more partnerships or joint ventures popping up as companies try to strengthen their position or maybe break into specific market segments.
And it even gives a few hints about the specific strategies of some major players, linking them to applications.
It does. For instance, it notes John Deere is focusing on integrating advanced tech and software, aiming for efficiency gains, particularly in the big agricultural farming segment. New Holland's strategy is highlighted as developing eco-friendly models, focusing on reduced emissions and costs. The report links this to transportation logistics, which is a bit unusual for tractors, but that's what's listed as their focus.
Interesting. And Mahindra and Mahindra.
Their focus is mentioned as enhancing fuel efficiency and power output, specifically targeted towards landscaping construction applications. So you see these slightly different angles from the big players.
Right, focusing on specific niches or capabilities.
Exactly. These application-level strategies are interesting nuances in the competitive landscape.
So, okay, let's try and pull all these threads together for you, our listener. This report from DataString Consulting, it really paints a clear picture, doesn't it? The biofuel tractor market is definitely on a significant growth path.
Yeah, a strong upward trajectory. And that growth is being powerfully driven by, well, two big things. That urgent global need for sustainable agriculture and the continuous technological improvements making these tractors better and more practical.
And it's a pretty big, but the report is also very clear about the major practical challenge, that limited biofuel infrastructure, especially out in the countryside where these tractors are most needed.
That's the key restraint, it seems. And it's important to remember the growth isn't going to be the same everywhere. Specific applications, like we discussed forestry and horticulture and certain regions, particularly North America and Asia Pacific, seem poised for higher growth, at least in the near term.
And the competitive scene is active, with clear leaders like AGCU, but the report suggests we should probably expect some changes. Acquisitions, consolidation, partnerships shaping the landscape in the coming years.
We hope this deep dive into DataString Consulting's analysis gives you a clearer picture of what's happening in this, well, this rapidly changing market.
Yeah, whether you're directly involved in agriculture, maybe working in technology or environmental policy, or perhaps you're just interested in how industries are adapting to these huge global pressures.
This report offers a really compelling snapshot.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the global biofuel tractor market.
And we'll leave you with this final, perhaps most critical thought that emerges from the report's findings. You have this strong growth forecast, right? This projected 132% expansion. It's driven by really powerful forces, the absolute need for sustainable farming and ongoing tech advances.
But then you have that major bottleneck, the limited biofuel infrastructure, especially in rural areas. So the question is, how quickly can the industry realistically overcome that infrastructure problem? And ultimately, which factor is going to win out? Will the strong drivers push the market to that 132% target, or will the infrastructure limitations prove too big a drag? That seems to be the central tension to watch.